It's often cited amongst writers that the perfect ending to a story should manage to be surprising, but inevitable, as in, before you see it, it should be unpredictable, but then as soon as it's over, considering the story that came before it, you should feel that it couldn't have ended any other way.
Forget it, Jake, it's Chinatown.
That, to be fair, is really hard. Not every movie can pull off the genius of Seven or the bittersweet sentimentality of Casablanca. Some movies go out of their way to be memorable, and in doing so manage to piss off a whole bunch of people, whether they're paying public or the people who actually made it. I'm Adam from WhatCulture.com, and here are the 10 most controversial movie endings of all time. Spoilers, obviously. Number 10, The Descent. Now, there's admittedly not much to the plot of The Descent. It can basically be summed up as women in a bad hole, although, no, I'm sorry I said that. The taut and tense British horror about spelunking and monsters has an ending that's fairly typical of the horror genre. The lead character escapes, but then, in a gotcha twist, sees a ghost and wakes up, it being revealed that she's still underground and still going to die. So far, so horror. The controversy came from the American edit, which couldn't handle going full dark, instead opting to end happily with the protagonist above ground. Except that way you don't get the shot of her underground hallucinating her dead daughter, which thematically wraps up the entire movie. Also, the American ending sort of ended with her still escaping in a car, but also seeing the ghost of her dead friend and screaming, so what? It's a chopped up ending that tries to be happy but still scary and ends up being, well, neither, really. Number 9, The Mist. Frank Darabont's adaptation of Stephen King's novella once again confirms the director and author are super best friends who should work together on all projects forever. But then the ending happens. Tom Jane makes an attempt at escaping through the mist with 4 survivors, 2 old folk, a teacher, and his son. On the way, they see just how screwed their world is, with gigantic creatures taller than buildings walking around, and when Tom Jane makes the horrendous choice to kill everyone in the car via quick, merciful gunshot, including his son. Leaving him all alone. Then, a minute later, the mist clears and everything's fine. What the actual is that? Is that some sort of joke? Like, some prefer this ending, like Stephen King himself. The novella actually ends with the mist remaining but still an element of hope. Some prefer it for its devastating impact, but some see it as a gratuitously edgy punchline of a twist, robbed of any actual impact for being so over-the-top horrible. Whoops! Guess you should have waited 5 minutes before killing your kid, mate. Waka waka waka. Number 8, Blade Runner. It's great, and pretty much everyone seems to agree on that, but when even the main cast and crew cannot agree on a film's ending, 20 plus years after the fact, it's fair to call it a bit controversial. The big debate is Deckard a replicant or a human, with fans tearing up the message boards with their theories about unicorns. Not even Ridley Scott and Harrison Ford can agree. Scott has gone on record many times claiming that Deckard was a replicant, whereas Ford is adamant that he was human.
As a replicant would.
The original screenwriter, Hampton Fancher, calls him a human, but admits the question is still there. Does anyone who worked on this film actually know for sure?
Basically,
The hoopla ending gains a little bit more of a controversial edge when you take into account that Philip K. Dick was in fact very clear that Deckard was a human in the original book Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, making the debate the sole invention of the filmmakers. Number 7, Man of Steel. Superman, the bright blue Boy Scout, the eternal optimist to Batman's pessimist, advocate of truth, justice, and the American way. At the end of Man of Steel, hundreds of thousands of people are killed and Superman breaks someone's neck. Oh god, is it somehow the 90s again and no one told me? There's grim and gritty, and then there's psychotic. And the ending to Zack Snyder's Superman film created such a huge backlash with its lunatic levels of civilian casualties and casual carnage, so much so that the city-annihilating battle becomes a huge part of the sequel's plot, and if anyone says they planned that from the off, then look at that person, that is what a liar looks like. Number 6, Arlington Road. This one's just an absolute punch to the cock, an ending so unremittingly shocking, cruel, and depressing that you don't know whether to applaud it for being so bold, or burn the DVD and then the DVD player. Arlington Road is about Jeff Bridges, a father and widower who becomes convinced that his neighbour Tim Robbins is a terrorist and sets about stopping his plans. The ending of the film has Bridges realise he has unwittingly delivered Tim Robbins' bomb to the building it was designed to blow up, and the bomb detonates. So not only does the terrorist win and escape unpunished, the protagonist dies, he's framed for the crime, his girlfriend's murder goes unresolved, his now orphaned son never learns of his father's innocence, and all those civilians die too. Jesus wept. Number 5, I Am Legend. It's a common practice that Hollywood takes a film source with a complex ending and smacks it against a rock until it's nice and flat and simple and dumb. I Am Legend is the quintessential example of that. In Richard Matheson's novel, it turns out that the vampire creatures that were born of the virus that wiped out humanity had become intelligent and viewed the protagonist, Robert Neville, with as much fear and hatred for killing their kind as he did them. The alternate ending to the Will Smith movie was supposed to have a bit of this nuance. The leader of the Darkseekers is able to communicate to Neville that he just wants the body of the female he'd been experimenting on returned. Human and Darkseeker reach a peaceful agreement. In the actual theatrical ending they end up using, Will Smith just kills himself and the creatures with grenades.
Dum 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 dum.
Oh. Number 4, The Devil Inside. This is a film that just stops. That's all that happens, the plot just ends. It's a found footage movie about demonic possession. All the protagonists get in a car trying to get an emergency exorcism for one of the characters. Then there's a demon-induced car crash, and then cut to a black screen. It just tells people, for more details about what actually happened to the ending of this film, go to this website. End of movie. You lazy bastards. You absolute sons of... Number 3, Inception. Like Blade Runner before it, it's impossible to leave Inception off the list when people still rant and theorise about the ending to this day. Very rarely does the last shot of a movie leave an entire cinematic audience howling in frustration and excitement. Is Cobb dreaming? Why haven't his kids aged? What about his wedding ring? Did the top wobble? How dare Nolan troll us like this? What a genius Nolan is. All this and more rebounds around the internet like gunfire. Number 2, Planet of the Apes. Ha 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 ha! You, Planet of the Apes, you make no sense.
You damn dirty human!
So Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes has been oft-derided, but the ending has at least become iconic, even if it's just in the field of most stupid things. In the ending of the film, Marky Mark leaves the planet of the Funky Bunch behind and goes back in time to Earth to discover everything's fine except, oh no, Monkey Lincoln. Apes have somehow taken over his timeline and just... What? Trying to follow up the iconic twist ending of the original Planet of the Apes cannot have been an easy task, but this...
Damn you! God damn you all to hell!
Number 1, Empire Strikes Back. Controversy isn't always bad, and how can we leave the most iconic movie twist ending of all time off the list? Retconning the whole Vader killed Luke's father thing, dropping that huge bombshell, having Han being taken away, and then ending the film on a downbeat cliffhanger. Wow. It's iconic now, but back when it originally came out, it blew people's minds. Many people refused to believe that Vader was in fact Luke's father. There was near pandemonium in some screenings. Basically, if you want an idea of how people reacted, imagine if the Red Wedding f***ed the Bruce Willis as a ghost. That's the kind of shock and awe we're dealing with here. And that's our list. Did we miss any out? Tell us about it in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter here. I'm Adam from WhatCulture.com, and I'll see you soon.